This week on Football Playbook. Jeff George and the Oakland Raiders head east to Dallas as they try to corral Emmitt Smith and the Cowboys. Warren Sapp and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers motor to Detroit to put the brakes on Barry Sanders and the Lions. Warren Moon and the undefeated Seahawks fly to the Steel City to face off against Jerome Bettis and the 2-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. All that and much more this week on Football Playbook.
Red 45!
Welcome to Week 4 of Football Playbook, everybody, along with the coaches, Sam Weich and Marv Levy. I'm Scott Kaplan. We've got a great show for you today. Starting it off, the AFC East. Taking the week off this week, the Miami Dolphins leading the way in that division 3-0. The NFC West coming back to work this week. Atlanta and San Francisco, big game in that division. We'll get to it. But before we get into this week's games, we're going to take a look at the league leaders in the key categories, rushing, passing, and receiving. NFC, Garrison Hurst leading the way right here. Barry Sanders just a yard behind. Tony Banks, what a comeback last week. St. Louis over your Buffalo Bills, Marv, 816 yards. And Herman Moore leading the way for the receivers. Now moving it over to the AFC, Terrell Davis, no real surprise here. The Denver Broncos, 5 scores already. Jeff George will be talking about the Oakland-Dallas game coming up shortly. And Carl Pickens, 20 receptions already, but no scores. And talking about those Oakland Raiders, they are struggling at 1-2. They are on their way to face the 2-1 Dallas Cowboys coming up this week. And we're going to start off with a check on weather conditions in Dallas with Jennifer Cole.
Texas Stadium in Dallas is the scene. The forecast provided by AccuWeather is calling for showers and a temperature at game time of 86 degrees. One interesting note, Oakland has never lost in Dallas. And be sure to check out the website, sportsline.com, for last-minute weather changes.
Marv, injuries for the Dallas Cowboys. Troy Aikman still on the shelf. Emmitt Smith leaves the game with a pulled groin. Will that affect the game?
I don't know if it will. Jason Garrett stepped in. He did a solid job filling in for Troy last week. And so far as Emmitt is concerned, Sherman Williams and Chris Warren are very capable backups. And if Deion Sanders continues to glow and flow like he has been, the Cowboys will be all right.
Chris Warren just getting back to practice this week for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go to the matchup breakdown right now, guys, and look at the numbers here. The Dallas Cowboys nearly 40 yards better on the ground than the Oakland Raiders in the last 5 games overall, Marv.
But the Raiders have been playing come-from-behind football. That will affect them. But what they have to correct, Jeff George has been sacked 19 times. They've had to endure 38 penalties. You can't win that way.
You know, from Dallas' standpoint, the 3-0 start that Jason Garrett has as a quarterback goes up against the pass rush or the rushing defensive unit of the Oakland Raiders. They can't get this guy hurt. The backup is a second-year player, Mike Quinn. After that, you go to your tight end as your third quarterback. This forces them to do what they do better, and that's run the ball.
Okay, Marv, Oakland Raiders. This past week, Tim Brown said he was embarrassed to even look at Eric Turner after the game. Said the offense didn't get it done for the Raiders. What about this week? The offense is going to have to do something.
Well, the offense is going to have to do something. They have racked up some pretty good yardage along the way. The offensive line has to get it together. Not that they're the only ones responsible for penalties and sacks, but it all begins there. Napoleon Kaufman's only carried the ball 46 times in 3 games. That's not enough. On defense, they have to stop that Dallas big play. For example, Billy Davis, an 80-yard touchdown last week, and 2 long Deion Sanders touchdown returns.
Okay, Marv, you've talked in the past about Tim Brown. You have a lot of respect for this guy from the Oakland Raiders, but last week it was James Jett. No touchdowns, but he did step up his game.
Yes, he did. They have 2 great, capable receivers. James had 5 catches for 116 yards last week. Ricky Dudley's beginning to emerge as a very top-flight tight end, had their only offensive touchdown. And Eric Turner is a fine defensive football player.
Okay, now, Sam, talking about the Dallas Cowboys, we head into Week 4, and the Cowboys are atop the NFC East, 2-1.
They are, but they've got to keep Jason Garrett off the hot seat. Don't leave him in 3rd and long situations. That means on 1st and 2nd down, nice positive yardage so that you leave yourself in a 3rd and medium or a 3rd and short situation. On the defensive end, while you're doing that, get Deion back in there on the offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on the defensive side of the ball, 2-layer the defense between the defensive line and the linebackers so that Napoleon Kaufman doesn't have a straight shot, too much acceleration, make him weave through those guys.
Okay, now, Sam, Marv talked about Billy Davis, the 80-yard touchdown catch last week. But if I'm Jason Garrett, my safety valve, without question, is Michael Irvin.
Billy Davis can't do that every week, but Michael Irvin can, and that's who Jason Garrett's going to go to. Not just for the big plays, but for the 1st and 2nd, 3rd down plays and medium yardage. running back, Smith, Sherman, and Chris Warren ought to be back. Game time decision. A lot of depth there. Deion Sanders, not just a defensive player and an occasional offensive player, but he's going to be returning punts. What a spectacular player.
Guy was unbelievable this past weekend against the Giants. That was his first game of 2 touchdowns. And in the words of Johnny Carson, I did not know that.
Well, I did not either.
Sportsline national columnist Ray Buck standing by in the Sportsline newsroom. He's got his insight on the game. Ray, take it away.
X-rays on Troy Aikman's broken shoulder, out another 3 games. X-rays on the Dallas Cowboys, a whole lot better than that. That's because backup quarterback Jason Garrett goes against Jeff George. Advantage Garrett. Keep in mind, since Chan Gailey moved from Pittsburgh to Dallas, Cordell Stewart has struggled with the Steelers, and Garrett is more than a capable backup with the Cowboys. Back to you, Scott.
Our next game, the undefeated Jacksonville Jaguars visit the Tennessee Oilers. Oilers have yet to win a game in their new home. Let's first start with a look at weather conditions in Nashville and Jennifer Cole.
It's a second home game in Nashville for the Oilers at Vanderbilt Stadium. The forecast is calling for rain showers and a high temperature of 84 degrees. Now, don't forget, Jacksonville's won their last 3 meetings against the Oilers. Scott?
Sam, key injury heading into this game. Jacksonville Jaguars, their leading rusher, James Stewart, gone, torn ACL.
Yeah, and it's a good thing that Jacksonville took Fred Taylor 9th overall. The rookie set a Jaguar record of 128 yards last week, and I really like their 4th-round pick, Tavian Banks.
Yeah, both of these guys have looked good so far. Okay, let's go to the matchup breakdown right here, and the number that we're going to focus in on is in the passing game. And Marv, maybe this statistic is a little bit misleading. The Tennessee Oilers actually outpassing the Jacksonville Jaguars?
It certainly is misleading, Scott, and I'll tell you why. They've been trying to come from behind. Jacksonville has won 4 of the last 5 meetings between these two teams. And Jacksonville is going to be the top challenger for Denver for the AFC Championship.
And the Oilers continue to emphasize defense. Keep the score low, the game close for their offense, and win it in the 4th quarter. They had 4 sacks in holding New England to just 13 points until the closing minutes last week.
Now, Marv, for Jacksonville to go to Nashville and improve their record to 4-0, what can they do?
I'll tell you what they should do. They've got to keep the running game running. They have a great offensive line, whether it's Stewart or Taylor or anyone else behind them. On defense, try to fluster Steve McNair. He's still young and inexperienced. He threw a 4th-quarter interception to Lawyer Malloy last week, resulting in a very key Patriot touchdown.
All right, you look at the passing game of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last week, Mark Brunell lit it up. We expect more of the same this week.
Sure, Brunell, he'll light it up passing, he'll light it up running. He threw for over 375 yards last week. Fred Taylor, as Sam pointed out, 128 yards rushing. And Reggie Barlow, if it wasn't for Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardle, he'd be a starter. He'd be a starter with most other teams, and he gives them a great kick return dimension as well.
Yep, he's already got 1 for a touchdown this year. Okay, Sam, we heard the stat from Marv. The Tennessee Oilers have only won 1 of the last 5 matchups in this series. What are they going to have to do today?
Well, I think they make this a 4th-quarter ball game. Run the ball, don't get too scared to do that, and full protection so you don't take any big losses. And on defense, nice balancing of the scales. The defensive line of Tennessee is not going to get past that big line of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee's defensive line averages 288 pounds. Jacksonville's offensive line, 320 pounds, 30-pound difference.
Yeah, major discrepancy there. Okay, but this Tennessee team is still really a one-dimensional team, and it's led by their star running back.
Well, Eddie George is the key right there. 160 yards. 60 of those came in the air last week. But Steve McNair's got to decide that he's going to go to secondary receivers and not throw interceptions. And Yancey Thigpen has not really had a very good year this year, but last year, as a Steeler against Jacksonville, caught 9 catches for 196. He's actually hurting 2 teams. He's not with the Steelers, and he's not having a big year for Tennessee.
Okay, not a lot of productivity out of those Tennessee wide receivers so far, and we'll be talking more about that Pittsburgh game coming up on Football Playbook, so stay with us.
Will Seattle soar over Pittsburgh? Seahawks Steelers next on Football Playbook.
Welcome back to Football Playbook, everybody. We're going to jump right into our next game. It is a big AFC matchup at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. The undefeated Seattle Seahawks come all the way from the West. They take on the 2-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's find out about weather conditions with Jennifer Cole.
It looks like it'll be a great day for football in the Steel City. The forecast calls for partly sunny skies with a game time temperature of 81 degrees. And a positive note for Seattle fans, the Seahawks have won 3 of their last 4 meetings.
All right, injuries on the Seahawks side, 2 of them. All-pro wide receiver Joey Galloway sprained ankle, had to leave the game last week. He only caught 1 pass for 5 yards. And linebacker Chad Brown going back to face his old team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. He left the game with a concussion. Both guys should be able to play, not going to create a problem for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's take a look at the matchup breakdown right now. In the last 5 games overall, take a look at these numbers, Marv. The Seahawks are scoring on average 31 points a game, and all of those games have been victories. On the other hand, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense really struggling.
Well, the Steelers are struggling, Scott, but let me tell you something. The Seahawks are scoring on both sides of the ball. Sean Springs, a couple of touchdown returns, for instance. They have not played good competition, however. And reason number 3, the Seahawks are pretty darn good.
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh loses its edge when it takes its 28th ranked offense going against Seattle's 8th ranked defense. When you've got problems like that, one answer is go to your strength, and that's the running game. Jerome Bettis, averaged over 5 yards a carry last week.
Okay, Marv, you talked about the competition not being so good so far for Seattle. They are 3-0. Philadelphia, Washington, and Arizona, all victories. This is their first big test of the season.
Yes, it is. They're going into Pittsburgh as still a strong team with a 2-1 record. Huge test to see if the Seahawks are for real. What do they have to do? Balance their attack. Warren Moon has been terrific. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions so far this year, and they're running well with Ricky Waters. On defense, they have to stuff the run. Doggone it. Jerome Bettis, you've got to stop him, and you have to stop Cordell Stewart. The other teams have done a pretty good job so far this year.
Marv, you've already mentioned Ricky Waters. This guy's already paying dividends now for the Seattle Seahawks.
Scott, he must love that West Coast air. He played well for San Francisco. He's playing well now for Seattle after a brief interim period in Philadelphia where he didn't produce quite as well. Mike Pritchard helps out. Joey Galloway was out, but they make 2 darn good receivers on the field. Cortez Kennedy, only 1 tackle so far this year. It's my experience that heavier players tend to have shorter productive careers. Bruce Smith helped his career by going from 300 down to about 265.
Sam, as far as the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fans are angry. I got to ask you this question. As the coach, what do you do to fix this offense?
I would bring Cordell Stewart in, and I would say, look, Cordell, what are your most confident, your most familiar plays? Let's go with them. Scramble some more. We'll work back from there. Stay with the run longer. You can't abandon it like they did last week. Yancey Thigpen is gone. The 4 wide receiver deal will not work as well. Alan Faneca, the #1 pick at left guard, put him in there. Defensively, play Steeler, tough, hard-nosed football, and use Josh Miller's 49-yard average to set up short field position for that struggling offense.
Yeah, Josh Miller doing a great job punting the football already. Cordell Stewart, he's the key guy here. Struggled terribly last week against Miami.
Yeah, just settle down. Go to your secondary receivers. Don't worry about pushing it down the field. 3 interceptions will kill you like last week. Mark Bruner's a good guy to go to, and Levon Kirkland spearheads that defense. You like him, don't you, Mark?
I love him. With all due apologies to the great Junior Seau, I think Levon Kirkland is the best linebacker in the NFL.
Levon Kirkland, unbelievable. 275 pounds. He stuffs the run, and he can drop back into pass coverage. Want to remind everybody to stay with us because coming up a little bit later on in the show, the coaches and I are going to select all of the games in our pick segment. And I don't want to give anything away here, guys, but somebody did real well last week, and we'll see that a little bit later on.
1 week. Is he annoying or what?
Oh, brag.
Well, it's only 1 week. We'll see the season totals coming up a little bit later on. Let's move on now to our next game. An NFC West rivalry is going to continue. The San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons. But before we analyze this game, let's first check on weather in San Francisco. Here's Jennifer Cole.
It looks like another great day in San Francisco. The forecast is calling for mostly sunny skies and a high temperature of 77 degrees. A quick note for you, the 49ers have won 7 of their last 8 meetings. And be sure to log on to sportsline.com for any late weather changes. Guys?
Both the 49ers and Falcons come into this game off of a bye week, and they both appear to be in pretty good health. But one note here as far as roster for the 49ers, they re-signed running back Terry Kirby, and veteran punter Reggie Roby now is in a San Francisco 49er uniform. Take a look at the matchup breakdown here, guys. And first, we'll start it off with rushing. Now, we're going to throw a lot of stats at you here, so stay with us. The Niners' advantage in the rushing game. The Niners also the big advantage in the passing game. And, Sam, look at this. Almost double the amount of points for the 49ers. 2 words, total domination.
And the bye week won't help. The offensive line misses the speed of Byron Hansford going outside. He's injured.
And the 49ers have fantastic offensive weapons, and they're all clicking. On defense, however, they're not as good as they used to be. They're very vulnerable.
Okay, Sam, the Atlanta Falcons, yes, they're unbeaten, but it's a David and Goliath situation. They go out to San Francisco. What do they have to do to win?
Well, they got to protect Chris Chandler. If they lose him, they go to Steve DeBerg, who gave the ball to the last 1,000-yard runner, was Red Grange. That's it. But when Chris Chandler starts and finishes, they're 9-3, but he's been sacked 9 times in 2 games already. Jamal Anderson has got to pick it up, only 37 yards in the first half. Ray Buchanan and Eugene Robinson, these 2 guys are important on defense. They've turned a team around that 3 years ago gave up more pass yards than any in the history of the National Football League.
Okay, so Dan Reeves looking to shore up the defensive backfield. You did mention Chris Chandler. Yes, he is prone to injury, but this is the guy that makes the offense go in Atlanta.
He is, and Dan Reeves told me last year he's the most accurate passer, Chris Chandler, that he ever coached. Jamal Anderson got to do better in the yards gained, and Lester Archambault, he's the spearhead of that defense.
Marv, the 49ers obviously going to be big favorites at home this week in Candlestick. Yes, Candlestick, not 3-com. But what are they going to have to do to win?
Well, keep that fast-moving express going. What offensive weapons? They are really something so far, but on defense, they have to tighten up that pass coverage. They're 29th in the league on pass defense, and they're weak in other areas of defense as well.
Okay, Marv, Jerry Rice has made a nice comeback so far this year. We're going to watch out for Jerry Rice. Give us some other guys.
Let's start with Garrison Hurst. Now with his third club, realizing his great potential, is 7.7 rushing average. That's the best since Red Grange. Jerry Rice, the best in the league. Antonio Langham, 5 penalties for a good defensive back. You have to learn not only what you can do, but what you can't do as well. That's important.
You know, Marv, Jerry Rice has killed the Atlanta Falcons in the past. 22 touchdowns in 23 games against the Atlanta Falcons in his career. Send it over to Ray Buck. He's standing by in our Sportsline newsroom. He's got his thoughts on the game.
Too early to start talking about a 7-0 team? Not really. Steve Mariucci mentioned this last week that he has the kind of Niners team that can make life miserable on people, and he's right. Between now and the November 1st meeting at Lambeau Field against Green Bay, the Niners can run the table. Forget about the fact they're 4-5 coming off bye weeks. 7-0, here we come. Back to you, Scott.
Much more to come on Football Playbook, so stay tuned.
It's an NFC Central showdown. Buccaneers-Lions coming up on Football Playbook.
Welcome back to Sportsline's Football Playbook with Sam Weich and Marv Levy. I'm Scott Kaplan. We're going to get right into our next game. It's the Sunday night game. The 1-2 Baltimore Ravens playing host to the 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals. Pretty disappointing start for both of these teams. But first, let's check in with weather and Jennifer.
It looks like a beautiful day on the eastern seaboard. The forecast for Baltimore is calling for clear skies and a temperature of 79 degrees. And good news for Bengals fans. Cincinnati leads the all-time series 3-1.
Marv, as far as injuries, starting on the Baltimore side.
Middle linebacker Ray Lewis, an important man, dislocated his elbow. He's questionable. It's going to be a game-time decision.
For Cincinnati, starting defensive back Corey Sawyer, gone for the rest of the year, tore his knee up last week against the Green Bay Packers. We'll move into the matchup breakdown. A lot of numbers coming your way. Rushing the football looks to be about even. Passing the football, dead on even. And the same can be said as far as points scored. But, Sam, Baltimore has lost 3 of the last 4 meetings.
Got 2 frustrated teams with no momentum. Coaches can't help you right here. The momentum has to come from within the team, the players.
Well, Sam and Scott, the Ravens were 4-0 in the preseason, but preseason doesn't mean much because they're 1-2 now. They've lost to some good teams. Nevertheless, I feel they're a team with a lot of promise. Witnessed their victory over the Jets a couple of weeks ago.
Sam, the Cincinnati Bengals to leave Baltimore at 500. What do they need to do?
Well, to do what most coaches do in this situation, go back to fundamentals. Don't panic. They're coming off the worst rushing day in Bengal history. They go against the Ravens, who held Corey Dillon to 60 yards in 2 games a year ago. On defense, the zone blitz has got to figure out a way to stop the run. Maybe that means don't zone blitz quite as much. And be careful. With Corey Sawyer out of the game, Artrell Hawkins, a rookie at cornerback, is going to get tested.
Okay, Neil O'Donnell, his grade so far this year, effective, efficient, but not real impressive.
He's an accurate passer, but he's not a scrambler. So when things break down, he's not going to get the run to make up for the play. Carl Pickens is going to have to do that with the big catches. And Tom Tumulty on defense spearhead that group of guys.
Okay, now, Marv, the Ravens, they have won only 1 game. They've lost 2, but the 2 losses against pretty good teams. What about today against Cincinnati?
Very good teams. They have to get Jermaine Lewis involved in that offense. This guy is a game breaker. On defense, they should use zone defenses against O'Donnell. He tends to hold the ball unless he sees people wide open or played man-to-man against. Zone's the answer.
Okay, Marv, we have not mentioned Jim Harbaugh in the injury report, even though he's still banged up with the finger. Eric Zier stepped in and done a good job.
He's done an excellent job. He's thrown for 3 touchdowns. He's relieved Harbaugh in every game. Michael Jackson, this Michael Jackson has danced all over Cincinnati in his appearances against them. Peter Bulwer is the bulwark of the defense for the Ravens.
For all this information and a whole bunch more, we invite you to jump online. Go to our website. It's www.sportsline.com. We'll move in now to the Monday night matchup. A big game in the Motor City. The Lions looking to get their first win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No big injuries in this game. Both teams appear to be pretty healthy. So let's take a look at the matchup breakdown. In the last 5 head-to-head matchups, Sam, between these 2 division foes, look at the advantage that Detroit has in terms of scoring points.
And the Bucs have another problem: slow starts. They've been outscored 52-0 in the first half of games this year. And remember this: the Bucs haven't been on Monday night since Warwick Dunn reached puberty.
Oh, nice.
That's
just great.
Well, Charlie Batch hasn't reached it yet either for the Detroit Lions. He's only had 1 game under his belt, and they better not rely on a young quarterback to win it. If they want to win, heavy reliance has to go to Barry Sanders.
Okay, Sam, last week Tampa Bay looked like they broke out of their offensive funk in the second half against Chicago.
And they have to control the ball this week. Don't give Barry Sanders and Herman Moore too many chances. On defense, they've got to make sure that Charlie Batch doesn't have that breakout game. A lot of pressure on him. They didn't have a sack against the Bears last week. Warren Sapp's being double-teamed. The other guys have to get in and do the job.
I know you love the offensive backfield, though, of Tampa Bay.
Well, I do. I think the combination of Warrick Dunn and Mike Allstott gives them a 1-2 punch, speed and power. And then on the other side of the ball, Derek Brooks is one of the most intense football players I've been around.
Okay, now let's bring it over to the Detroit side, Marv. As far as keys to victory for Detroit, they're not going to win games when Charlie Batch throws the ball 40 times.
No, they're not, but still, a key is protecting him. They can't go into a game and figure not to throw. But they have to be conservative in this football game, and that means run Barry Sanders. On defense, they have to shut down the Tampa Bay running game. How? Bring an eighth man into the box. Walk up a safety late to help those front seven stop those two great runners that Sam talked about.
Last week, you talked about Charlie Batch being thrown right into the fire. It's week 2 of the Charlie Batch experiment.
Well, it takes time for a young quarterback, and I think they're committed, at least for now. Herman Moore, 9 catches last week. He's always a very dangerous competitor, of course. And how about that Stephen Boyd last year against the Buccaneers? He had 26 tackles in those 2 games. What a performance.
All right, and we'll look for Stephen Boyd to have another big game coming up this weekend. You are going to want to stay tuned for what's next on Football Playbook.
Scott makes more wild guesses. It's the pick segment next on Football Playbook.
Time now for our pick segment, and it is getting very competitive around here with the Football Playbook. I don't want to break my arm patting myself on the back, but we go to the results from last week.
We're going to break your arm, buddy.
Good point, Sam.
You only won by 1.
One game. Hey, it's the first time I've won all year. I got to feel good. But then we go next, and Marv, you are leading us. Sam coming in right now in second place, and I have got, again, work cut out. But let's go right into our featured games from this week. Cowboys at the Raiders. Sam, to you first.
Cowboys win. Quarterback controversy in Dallas.
Come on.
No. Just kidding.
The Cowboys are a lot stronger team than people think. I think they're going to run away with the NFC East.
I also like the Cowboys in this week's game. The Jaguars visiting the Oilers. They're going crazy in Nashville, Coach.
Well, they may be, but they're meeting too good a team. The Jaguars are balanced. They're strong. They're good on both sides of the ball. They're confident. I love that left-handed quarterback. Who do you think I picked? The Jaguars.
Jaguars again. Their offensive line will dominate this game.
Okay, 3 for 3. I also like the Jaguars. Falcons on their way to San Francisco, Sam?
I got 49er blood in me. They rule. They beat the Falcons, but I am happy for Dan Reeves.
Okay.
The 49ers at home, they have too many offensive weapons. I'm picking the 49ers also.
Okay, I also like the 49ers. There we are, 3 for 3. Maybe we can get some change up on this one. The Seahawks visiting the Steelers. Marv.
My fearless forecast, the Seahawks will go in, and I predict they'll win. I think the Steelers are walking on the edge. They've lost too many good players. They remind me a little bit of what our Bills team was like about a year ago.
Seahawks have arrived. I picked Seattle.
You see, you guys are both buying into the 3 wins over NFC East teams. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers at home this weekend. Bengals at the Ravens. Little AFC Central action.
Going for the Ravens. The Bengals have not found themselves yet.
And just because they are at home, 2 evenly matched teams, I think I'll go with the Ravens also.
I also like the Ravens. Okay, our final game. Bucks are at the Lions. Can the Lions get their first win?
Well, I think they can. They're struggling at quarterback, but they are at home against a team which is also struggling somewhat. I pick the Lions.
My heart says the Bucks, but I think the Lions are going to win this one.
I also like the Detroit Lions to get their first win of the season on Monday night. Remember to check out our website. It's www.sportsline.com. When you get there, you're going to get the rest of our picks, plus the latest news, information, weather, scores from around the league, and much, much more. For the coaches, Marv Levy and Sam Weich, for Jennifer Cole, for Ray Buck, for the entire staff here at Football Playbook, this is Scott Kaplan wishing you a great football weekend. We'll see you next week.